Hello everyone, my name is Rachel. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am so excited to do this video about Christmas book recommendations. As you can see, I am decked out in a very holiday shirt, and I even have bell earrings on and red lipstick. I am so ready for this video. So I'm gonna be upfront with you guys. A lot of these recommendations might be basic, but I do tend to read very popular books, and I also feel like the Christmas subgenre in fiction is just not very plentiful. I don't know, I feel like it's difficult to find obscure books that are actually really good in the genre. I may be the only one that thinks that, but that's just how it seems to me. So a lot of these books you may have read before or you may have heard of, but I did include some recommendations that I think are a little off the beaten path. So hopefully you still get some really great recommendations from this video. So without further ado, let's just get right on into it. The first one that I have to talk about is A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. Now, I know that everybody knows of this book, but I feel like there's still too many people out there who haven't read it, and the cover that I'm going to put over here is specifically from the Audible audiobook, and this has a completely full cast of voice actors that portray all of the different characters, and the production company even went above and beyond with all of the sound effects and everything. Like, it truly feels like you are listening to a movie when you're listening to this audiobook. It completely brings the story to life, and I was engaged the entire time. Also, this audiobook is only like 3.5 hours, so you're gonna fly through it for sure. And this has always been a story that's meant a lot to me. From when I was a very young child, I was watching adaptations of this story, so it was definitely well past time that I read the original source material, and I'm so glad that I did. I actually discussed this book a lot more in depth in my 'Tis the Season-a-thon reading vlog, which is going up next week at some point, I think on Tuesday, so definitely be on the lookout for that, and I'll definitely link it up in the cards above when that video gets posted. But I did discuss a lot of interesting like differences between the adaptations and the original story and all of that, so I definitely recommend checking out the reading vlog for that. So speaking of A Christmas Carol, I have to talk about one of my favorite books of all time. I am not exaggerating when I say this. This is easily one of my top 10 favorite books of all time, and it is A Christmas Carol retelling, and that is The Afterlife of Holly Chase by Cynthia Hand. I have read this book twice at this point. I read this for the first time in December of 2018, and then I read it for 'Tis the Season-a-thon last year. I'll definitely link that playlist up in the cards above. I did daily vlogs for that 'Tis the Season-a-thon, and this book is a very big part of that. So for those of you guys that don't know what this is about, although I know this is a very popular book and for very good reason in my opinion, because I just adore it so much, but we are following our main character, Holly Chase, and she's 16 years old. She's a very selfish person, and she ends up getting visited by the ghosts of past, present, and future, and she doesn't take them seriously because they're ghosts, and you know, that is kind of ridiculous. And what ends up happening is that because she doesn't change her ways and because she doesn't take them seriously, the morning after she's visited by these ghosts, which is Christmas Day, she ends up dying in a car accident. And so her afterlife is that she ends up working for the company that runs this whole Christmas Carol Scrooge thing, which is called Project Scrooge. And she becomes the new ghost of Christmas past. And the story goes on from there. There's also a really cute romance involved, and I just adore this book so much for so many reasons. For one thing, I think Cynthia Hand did a phenomenal job adapting the original story of A Christmas Carol into a very modern YA sort of fantasy romance story. And the character of Holly Chase, I find her very compelling because of course she's not very likable, especially at the beginning, because she's so selfish, but throughout this book, her character arc is just so relatable at times, and it's just very beautiful to see how she goes from being a very selfish person to the end being somebody completely different from that. So I cannot recommend this enough. I've read it twice at this point. I am considering reading it again this month, even though it wasn't on my actual December TBR. It's just a book that means so much to me and will always mean so much to me. So all the rest of these recommendations are going to be pretty rapid fire because I don't have a ton of things to say about them, but the first one is One Hot December. This is book 3 in Tiffany Reese's, or Tiffany Rice, I think she's Tiffany Rice, I keep saying that wrong, her Men at Work series, and this one does kind of center around Christmas, but not really. I guess it's more like a wintry romance, but there is Christmas thrown in, especially towards the end of the book. All 3 of these books are such a fun time, but this one in particular is really fun for the holiday season, and I've read it twice at this point, and yeah, it's just a good smutty time. Tiffany Reese is so great at writing those kind of romances, so definitely recommend this book and the whole series if you really like smutty romances. Then we have How the Duke Stole Christmas. So this is an anthology of historical romance short stories by Tessa Dare, Joanna Shoup, Sophie Jordan, and Sarah McLean, and all 4 of the short stories are based on a particular Christmas movie. I know that Sophie Jordan's was based off of Home Alone, and Sarah McLean's, I think, was based off of A Christmas Carol. I enjoyed all of these a lot. I think I gave the anthology as a whole 3.5 stars, because a couple of the stories I gave 3 stars, a couple of the stories I gave 4 stars, but at the end of the day, I think that this is one of the best Christmas novella, you know, historical romance bind-ups out there. So I definitely recommend it. It was through this bind-up actually that I discovered both Sophie Jordan and Joanna Shoup, so I'm so glad that I read this last year. And then next up we have Landline by Rainbow Rowell. So I feel like this is a novel that a lot of people forget takes place around Christmas time because the cover doesn't really lend itself to that. But this one is about Neil and Georgie, and their marriage is not going well, so they end up separating for Christmas because of Georgie's work, and Neil is very upset about this, so they don't talk for a few days at all. And then Georgie ends up actually going back home for Christmas, and I forget why, and she finds this old landline phone, and so she ends up calling Neil on this old landline phone that she has found at her parents' house, and it turns out that the Neil that answers is from like 10 or 15 years ago, from a time in their relationship when they were kind of thinking of breaking up, and then I think they got back together and he proposed to her. So it's at another kind of breaking point in their relationship, and I thought this was really well done. I gave it 4.5 stars. The reason why I didn't give it 5 stars was that Neil's character annoyed me a bit, like present day Neil, because of his lack of communication with Georgie, but I thought it was a really beautiful story. I love romance novels that center around a married couple, you know, that are trying to find their way back to one another. Then we have Joy to the Duke by Darcy Burke. This is kind of a novella, I think. I think it's only about like 200 pages, and this is a part of a Christmas novella series that she wrote, but this is the only one that I read, and this is a Christmas Carol retelling, so of course I'm a sucker for it. But I remember just really enjoying the different elements that Darcy Burke incorporated from the original Christmas Carol story. And I particularly love reading romances like this that are based off of A Christmas Carol, because the original story isn't really a romance. I mean, there's a little bit of a romance kind of thrown in, but that's not the main focus. Next up is Merry Inkmas by Talia Hibbert. Now, since then, I have read a lot more of Talia Hibbert's books, and I will say that in my opinion, this is not her best work by any means, but it's a fun Christmas story about this guy who is a tattoo artist and this woman who is a barista at a coffee shop, and she ends up quitting her job and he's there to witness it, and that's kind of how their relationship starts. And yeah, it was just a fun time, but there's also a lot of angst thrown in there. From what I remember, the hero's past is kind of tragic, so I did kind of want to mention that, but yeah, it overall was a fun time. Next one I want to mention is Once Upon a Winter's Eve by Tessa Dare. This one is a novella in her Spindle Cove series, and it's just a fun little Christmas adventure. It takes place during one night. I don't really have much to say about it. I did give it 4 stars. It's definitely not Tessa Dare's best work, but if you love Tessa Dare as much as I do, I think that you will enjoy this. Then I just finished this a couple days ago. I have to mention In a Holidays by Christina Lauren. I did give this 4 stars. It's exactly what you think it's going to be. It is an adorable Christmas rom-com with a friends to lovers romance with magic thrown in, with a time loop thrown in. So this is kind of like the movie Groundhog Day. We have our main character Malin, and she realizes that she's not really happy in life, and so she makes this wish to the universe to show her what will make her happen. And so she ends up going into this time loop where she starts reliving the days of this Christmas trip that she went on with her family over and over and over again. So again, really cute, really adorable. I loved the family, like the side characters were really fun, and I loved their different holiday traditions. Definitely gave me warm and fuzzy feelings. So So that's it for all of my recommendations. I thought that I would quickly talk about some Christmas books that I'm planning on reading later this month that really appealed to me. The first one is Once Upon a Christmas Eve. This is by Elizabeth Hoyt. This is a novella in her Maiden Lane series. I have read one of the books in this series so far, and I loved it so much that when I found out that she wrote a Christmas novella for it, I immediately added it to my Libby wish list. And then the next one I'm interested in is The Boss Who Stole Christmas by Jana Aston. This one was recommended by Brie from In Love and Words. She recently talked about this in a reading vlog where she was reading a ton of Christmas novellas, and this one sounded like a really fun time. Jana Aston is a romance author that I've been meaning to check out for quite some time. Then we have All I Want for Christmas is a Vampire by Carolyn Sparks. I randomly found this on Goodreads last night, and it just sounds like so much fun because it's a vampire book that is set during Christmas. This is technically book 5 in her Love at Stake series, and I do plan on reading that series in general, but it sounds like you don't have to read them in order, so I definitely plan on reading this month. And then last but not least, I'm actually really interested in checking out Dash and Lily's Book of Dares by Rachel Cohn and David Levithan. I'm pretty sure those are the authors. Obviously the cover's going to be over here. At this point, this is like a classic YA novel, and it's about these two characters, Dash and Lily, and I think they're kind of like on a scavenger hunt in New York City during Christmas time. So it sounds like a fun time, but at the same time, I'm a little worried that like I'm a little too old for it at this point because it was published in 2010, and sometimes those like classic YA novels don't really work all that well for me. So I am gonna try it out and see if I like it. I hope that I do. But yeah, that's it for the Christmas books that I'm interested in checking out. And with that being said, that's it for all of my Christmas recommendations. I hope that you enjoyed this video. I would love it if you would leave a comment down below if you want to give me your Christmas recommendations, or if you want to talk about any of the books that I brought up in this video. I would also love it if you would leave a like and subscribe, and I thank you in advance if you do. And with that being said, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!